So I'm going to read from Bridgeville, which is the second to the last story in my collection. Megan called the Sunday before Thanksgiving. Jack was home alone, playing a port of Atari Space Invaders for PC that he downloaded. He paused his game and picked up without checking the caller ID box. She said hello, and the air left his lungs. He coughed and said hi and sat down. He reached in his pockets for a cigarette and lit it. Megan? Yeah, she said, drawing the word out, and he could see her crooked smile. You haven't called in a while. I was worried you'd forgotten me. He wondered if she was making fun of him. I didn't. I was wondering if you'd drive into Pittsburgh and pick me up at the bus station. I'm taking the long dog home. I could, sure, I guess. Sweet, I can't wait to see you, honey. I'm getting in at 8 on Tuesday night. It's right near the convention center. He said nothing to his parents and made sure he didn't mention Megan at all to Abby or Jeremy, who kept coming up with names of girls he should ask out. His parents planned a bonfire for Wednesday night and invited his friends before he could think of a way to stop them. On Tuesday, he showered, lied to his mother, and drove through the tunnels into downtown under heavy skies. The road seemed to pull him toward the bus depot, and he sat in the pickup area, smoking and watching flurries fall for half an hour before he saw her wrestling a huge duffel bag to the curb. He helped her toss it over the side of the truck, and she threw her arms around him, and then her mouth was warm and wet on his. He moved his arms to embrace her and buried his face in her thick black hair. In the truck, she talked non-stop, but the sound she made was the roar of pounding surf, the rush of blood. Staring forward at the road, he realized he'd agreed to take her out on Wednesday, that he'd told her about the bonfire. I wish we could go somewhere and get all caught up, she said, but my grandma's staying at our house so she can see me tonight, and I have to go home. He drove the highway, took the exit that dumped them off in Bridgeville, and took back roads to her house. He hoped she'd kiss him goodnight, but she just kissed her hand and blew it at him, grinned, and dragged her duffel to the door. She called him the next morning, and his mom answered the phone. Her face contorted when she heard Megan's voice, but she said, "Here he is," and put him on. She stood looking worried at him for a few moments, and then turned to leave and give him his privacy. He said hello, and she said, "Hi, jackanapes. Why don't you pick me up and take me to lunch?" He drove to her house, where she was waiting out front, dressed in a tight gray wool dress and knee-high leather boots, her hair glossy black over a red leather jacket. She hopped into the cab and leaned over to kiss him on the cheek. He took her to Applebee's, where they split potato skins and jalapeno poppers, and she talked about her play and all of the people in the drama program, the totally sexy professor who ran the show, the sexy, sensitive ex-Marine who played the villain, the sexy black guy who played the wise prince, the sexy director, and the sexy guy who made the sets. She looked at him and said, "You're quiet, even for you, Jack. Is everything okay?" He looked down at the huge lump of sour cream on the otherwise empty potato skins platter and said, "I guess, yeah." "Come on, Jack, what's up?" He wondered if she was just nuts, but also wondered if he was, too. I really missed you," he said, getting choked up. He watched her watch a tall man with long, stringy hair, wearing tight jeans and a shirt slit open at the sides to show off his ribs, walk through the restaurant. "I missed you, too," she said, and when they finished eating, she let him pick up the check. He followed her around the mall, waiting outside of dressing rooms as she paraded outfits in front of him. They stopped at a cigar store to buy cigarettes, and Jack smoked a butt with the owner, who introduced himself as Mr. Antonelli and had him fill out an application. When he read it, he said, "Grappa, huh?" and gave him a free cigar for being Italian. It rained softly as the sun set, but they could tell it wouldn't last long. She told him about a party in the woods. "We could go just for a while, then go to your parents," she said. "They won't care." Jack pulled the truck down a long access road and parked when he saw cars abandoned halfway in the ditch. They walked up the narrow path, smelled the fire, heard voices in the dark. Over a small rise, they saw the party, 60 or 70 kids drinking bottles and cans, smoking water bongs made from 2-liter soda bottles or PVC pipe. Three guys, remember the days. Three guys Jack recognized from the yearbook video came up to them and talked to Megan, offering her a drink. She kissed one of them warmly on the cheek. When she asked if Jack could have one too, they looked at him as if he weren't there and kept talking as if they hadn't heard her. He walked up to a cooler and took a beer for himself. Immediately, a red-faced kid with bad skin and a crew cut grabbed it from him and said, "What the fuck? It's bring your own, motherfucker." One of the guys who was talking to Megan came over and said something to the guy, who handed Jack his beer and walked away. Jack popped it open and chugged it, then dropped the can and took another one. He looked around but couldn't see where Megan had gone. He borrowed a lighter from a sophomore girl and lit his cigar. It was hard not to inhale, but he liked the taste, liked the idea of being the weirdo smoking a big cigar at a party. The girl said her name was Irene and asked him how the video yearbook was coming along. She was slim with big eyes and high cheekbones, and Jack suddenly wished he were at the party alone. He repeated her name to himself. Another girl stumbled up and said, "Jack Grappa, are you going to put me in your movie?" After a while, the cigar got old, so he threw it in the fire. He knew he had to leave, and the girl named Irene asked him if he had come with Megan. She said, I saw she was here. "Yeah," he said, "she came with me." "It's really cool that you two are friends still," she said, and looked around politely. He looked around, politely excused himself from the group of younger students who had gathered around him, and walked the party, looking for her hair and listening for her laugh. After a couple of turns around the circle, he found her sitting with the guy she had kissed hello, off to the side. He stood in front of her and said, "We have to go. My folks are waiting for us." "Easy there, buddy," the other boy said. Jack glared into his shadow. Megan said, "I have to go, but I'll call you," and he followed her towards the truck. Back in the cab, she said, "Jack, are you jealous again?" He started the engine and flipped on the lights. You're jealous." She looked forward through the windshield. "I have to keep reminding myself you're still just a kid." He had nothing to say to that. He didn't want to be anywhere near her, but also wondered if she would still have sex with him. Halfway to her house, she unbuckled her seatbelt and hiked up her skirt. He smelled whiskey on her, the way it was a different smell on her than on his dad or anyone else. She tossed something at his face, and he grabbed it from his lap, realized it was her thong. He turned down the driveway of a deserted house and killed his headlights, pulling out behind the old garage, their place. He took off his pants, and she lay back on the bench seat. He lowered himself on top of her, took great sleek handfuls of her hair, kissed her, rubbed himself on her, feeling her legs open wider. She gasped, and he felt the power of making her gasp, the feeling that whatever else loomed before him, he could do this one thing well, love her, make love to her. He reached down right at the angle and began working himself inside of her. She arched her back and sighed softly, then snapped her eyes open and said no. She wiggled him out of her, pulled herself upright in the cab of the truck. He thought she wanted head and started to press his mouth to her belly, but she pulled back so violently her knee cracked his jaw. He sat up and pulled back as she rearranged her skirts. He said, "What the fuck?" "It's just we shouldn't, Jack." "Why not?" "Jack, just no, okay? I don't need a reason. No, things are different. No." "I guess I'm too fucking immature to get it," he said, and started to shove his legs back into his jeans. She was quiet. He drove like a maniac, fishtailing through curves, not wanting her to see him cry. She said, "Now you're mad," and he didn't answer her. He looked out the side mirror while she got out of his truck and turned up the radio when she tried to say goodbye. He burned tire out of her parents' driveway and went and sat on the old stone bridge on Sumac Road, watching the black water 50 feet below shoot across the smooth boulders at the foot of the pilings. He cried and wondered how quick it would be, how much he would feel, and he wanted to do it, because it couldn't be worse than feeling this way. He spit once, then again, watching it drop into blackness and rushing water. It was cold and damp on top of the bridge, and he got back in his truck and went home. Jeremy's car was still in the driveway, and he went around to the back of the house. They all stopped talking and turned toward him, but he couldn't see their faces in the shadows cast by the fire. Jack walked up to a blue plastic ice chest and opened the grimy white lid, took a flavored vodka cooler and twisted off the cap with his shirt tail. Jack's dad tossed his cigarette into the remains of the bonfire and said, "Well, good night, ladies and gents." He picked up his glass, leaned down to lay his palm on Jack's head, and went in through the cellar door. Jack's mom didn't say a word, but she locked eyes with Abby, and Jack thought he saw her give a curt nod. She gathered up bottles and plasticware and followed her husband inside. Jack sat with his friends on the hillside at the back of his house, smoking in silence. Jeremy produced a joint, and after they had smoked it, he lay on the grass humming a tuneless medley of Led Zeppelin songs. Abby said, "Your parents threw you a party, dickhead." "Don't," he said, "just don't." "Fuck, Jack," she said. "I'm serious. You fucked up. I don't want to hear it. I can't deal with it right now." He felt the world spin a little. She said, "It's one thing if you're going to lock yourself in a room and mope, but when you start blowing us off, me, Jeremy, and your fucking parents, bullshit, Jack." She stood up and glared at him. "I'm done talking to you. I'm going to bed." She went in through the cellar door, and he could see her making up the downstairs couch with sheets his mother had left for her. Jack helped Jeremy inside and got him into the recliner, took off his sneakers and pulled a blanket over his legs. Abby pretended to be asleep a few feet away. Jeremy blinked open his eyes and settled a drunken smile on Jack. He whispered, "Yo, buddy, did you get any?" and offered Jack a low five on the sly.